You're listening to Trek FM.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's celebration of 50 years of Star Trek, where we watch all of the zillions of episodes and movies and everything about Star Trek in order to celebrate the 50th anniversary. I am your... Zillions. I am your host, Daniel Proulx, and joining me, as you just heard, is...
Aaron Harvey.
And Aaron, we're here to talk about 2 Deep Space Nine episodes. You know, we both have shows on the network.
Yes.
And neither of our respective shows is Deep Space Nine related.
That is true.
So that's fun, right?
Mine is on hardly even Star Trek related at times, it feels like.
But it's fun, right? It's fun to kind of get outside of your bubble and kind of get to do something different. So
that's true. We
are going to discuss 2 Deep Space Nine episodes today. And the first is Destiny, followed by Profit Motive. So let's start with Destiny. This is the episode where we learned that
Daniel and I don't get along.
Yes. And we learned that essentially the message of the episode is that vague prophecies are useless. That's kind of essentially what this episode is telling us.
Yes. This really actually reminds me quite a bit of in the early 80s, it was very popular to pull out Nostradamus quotes, and there were a lot of like HBO specials and things where they just had Orson Welles narrating it and like, look how close this is to what actually happens. And it's like, it's very much like this. It's these vague, it said the Kennedy assassination. It predicted Mount St. Helens erupting. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's really, really pushing it. So I feel like I have a kindred spirit with this because I'd listen to those. And it's like, that can predict anything. And it was just like, I think part of me as a kid who liked science fiction wanted to believe that could be true somehow. And then the other part of me that believed in science said, no, that's not true. Even with Orson Welles narrating it.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing that they've got going here, right? I love Deep Space Nine, I really do. But they do walk a tightrope here between science and religion, essentially. And that's kind of what they're doing. And Star Trek, I feel like... and I don't think this is surprising to anyone who watches the show, kind of lands on one side of that spectrum, and clearly other things land on the other side, and which is fine. That's just how this is perceived, and this episode, we kind of are now grappling with the idea that Sisko is the emissary, and what does that mean? And when this idea of him as a Starfleet person versus him as the religious icon of this planet conflict, what do we get? And it's interesting for that reason, but to me, it's kind of frustrating for that reason as well. But that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do have the idea that these are aliens that mess with time.
Yes, it's true.
So it's not, as far as like a quote prophecy, no, it's not somebody, I'm seeing the future. It's like being told by aliens that have the ability to see different eras of time, and then having that thing basically be like the telephone game through time, where by the time it ends up on the other end, it's like, what is it, The Simpsons, the purple monkey dishwasher? It's like it's something completely different at the other end. It's like, okay, that makes sense. I get that. That's the science-y end of it. That's the Starfleet answer. But so that part doesn't bother me. It's the way people react to it being, it's like, who take it as it's some sort of like, as it's a prophecy, that it's somehow, imbued with this supernatural, like layer to it, that it's just something that was told to someone. Why the prophets would actually tell that person that, I don't know. And then it just sort of is mutated over time and into something really generic.
Well, as we may find out in the next episode, the prophets seem to be willing to talk to whoever. And
that's true.
They may be incompetent. Honestly, I actually feel like they are. And we'll talk about that afterwards. But I know.
And at the end of this episode, you also have the person who normally is not this irritating when he's playing other characters. For some reason, he seems to have given himself some sort of nasally inflection. But at the end of the whole episode, he comes up and it's like, hey, maybe you want to hear about Trakor's fourth prophecy. It's like the emissary will be in a trial by fire. It's like, which is interesting because, well, he kind of does at the very end of Deep Space Nine. But again, that's so generic that could mean any arc of any character that has to go through something. So it's like, all right, thanks for that really helpful advice. I'm a Starfleet officer on a TV show. Yes, I'm going to go through some sort of trial by fire.
That's true. Yeah.
No, I'm not aware that I'm on a TV show.
I was going to say, that would be interesting if all the prophecies could be kind of viewed through the lens of like a very meta way. And like it was like, this person, but whatever. That's obviously not what they did. Yeah. And that's okay.
No. But I try to ignore that portion of the whole show because I actually really enjoy the two Cardassian scientists and their interaction with their handler, and had them coming on. Just basically, it's like, we don't see Cardassians or Klingons or any other culture that has sort of this, one concept. Really, you don't get to see their scientists, they're cooks, they're whatever. They're, you tend to, you either get like a culture that's all about art and poetry, and then they have no warriors, or you get all about warriors and there are no scientists. So it was really cool to see these two scientists who are actually kind of, I'm not really that kind of Cardassian. I'm not, I don't have a stomach for fighting. I don't, enjoy actually Cardassian food because, hey, I've been exposed to these other worlds, and it's really cool because I enjoy other things. So I thought that was really cool. And it's also, one of the Cardassians is played by Tracy Scoggins, who was, I believe, on Lois and Clark at the time, playing Cat Grant, and on Babylon 5 later. So I've always liked the actress, and so she was, for me, that was fun. And her interaction with O'Brien is really, really fun. So,
best part of the episode, without a doubt. It's so good. Yeah, you're right. Like, I do like that it's not like these Cardassians are earnest and wholehearted, and they don't have that duplicitous nature that most of the Cardassians that we meet have. And like these are just, well,
their handler does.
Well, their handler does. Yeah. She's stereotypical Cardassian, but these two are like, almost naive. In their like experience, like they want to kind of experience everything they can. They're doe-eyed.
Maybe they've been in that science bubble so much. Maybe they are that kind of that like the nerd in the basement kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe every culture has that.
Yeah, and of course, like the fact that like, but they also don't lose their Cardassian identity, right? Like we're talking about her interaction with O'Brien, and she thinks of aggressiveness as flirtation, and that's so good because it's like, that makes sense as like a race. They see that kind of, they appreciate that aggression, and it's so much. It's kind of a fun flip on its head, and of course, Colm Meaney plays it so beautifully and so perfectly. Like this awkward, like, no, I already have a kid. When she says that she's. Yeah, I assure you, I'm fertile. Like, it's so good. That's he's like, oh no, I have no interest in you whatsoever. And she's like, oh, okay, thanks. Like that's like, you've made your feelings very clear.
Yes, you should just stop talking now because I might kill you. No, she didn't say that. No, I love her. Like, wait, what? Wait, there's 3 emergency backup systems, or how? Like why? Why? It's like in case one fails. It's like, that's ridiculous. It's like, why do you need that many backups?
As an IT professional, I have to tell you, I actually thought of making a meme with Chief O'Brien and him saying, I would never want to be in a situation where my main and my backup failed, because everybody in the whole world should take that as real advice and backup. But
if the one thing we learned in this episode is to back up your data.
Yes.
I don't think that was the point of this episode.
No, but it doesn't matter because we've changed the point of the episode. That's how important it is that you back up your stuff, people. Come on, back it up. Okay.
No, but I enjoyed that portion of it, and I know that when you and I were talking, it's like, oh, I hate this episode, but I think you and I hate the episode, or not, maybe that's a strong word. We dislike parts of the episode for the same reason. So the parts that we both like seem to be, we both definitely appreciate. Yeah. Yeah, so
definitely the Cardassians. They're good stuff in this episode. Unlike
and the whole thing with the Kanar in the beginning, that Quark has this Cardassian wine that he saved, and Dax is like, puts her little pinky in it, and she's like, ooh, this Kanar has gone bad. It's like, because it's been sitting there for so long. So I think that was great.
So, well, then let's move on from destiny to profit motive.
which also has some prophety.
Yes, which again
in it.
I alluded to before, but let me get the synopsis out here. Zach Grandnagus of Ferenginar has become a philanthropist, which to the ultra-capitalist Ferengi is basically, I'm not sure about my terminology here, but Satan? Is that what that
could
is?
Be, yeah.
Okay.
Or he's Ardra.
Ardra,
or he's Lucian.
Or Lucian, nice.
From the Magics of Megas 2.
Exactly. So Quark worries that he may have
pick.
gone insane.
Yes. Well, for Ferengi, that's a valid concern.
No, for sure. So this is really interesting to me, this episode. For a number of reasons, but specifically because we get to see the interaction between the sacredness of Deep Space Nine's kind of prophet motive. I was going to say, but that's the prophet. The prophets.
That's a good episode name.
And the silliness of the Ferengi.
Yes.
And I could talk all day about this, but I just want to talk about the fact that we get to see Quark interacting with the prophets. And this makes me this honestly leads me to believe that the prophets have never made up their mind, because of course we're told that the prophets are outside of time and space. And every time anyone interacts with the prophets, they change their minds. Like Cisco meets the prophets and says, this is this, and this is they had a plan in motion. They were going to do this, and Cisco says, no, don't do the thing. And the prophets could say, okay, we'll do the other thing. And now we have this interaction with Quark, and he says, you did the thing to Zach, don't do the thing to me, and reverse the thing to Zach. And they say, okay, we don't understand your strange linear ways, but we'll do what you want. And I feel like the prophets are really terrible at interacting with normal humanoid creatures. I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me, I was always confused about why every time that we actually get an orb experience or whatever, the prophets are more confused by us than we are by them, it seems to me.
Yeah, they they don't live in linear time, so for some reason that I guess the way our thought process works is it's linear, but it's also, I know it's like wow, this is a really great explanation. But this is part of the problem, I think, is just how we can't possibly understand what it's like to know all times, because things unfold, and if they don't, everything exists all at once. That's how I always wondered what the queue, how does that work? It's like you would just experience everything at once. That's boring. Like, there's no sense of what is going to, there's no surprises, it feels like. So maybe they feel that we're kind of stupid in some ways, just because we just don't get it, because we don't know, we don't experience all the pieces that they do.
Yeah, that's
the only thing I can think of.
That is what the writers want us to believe. I don't feel like it's that consistent. I don't feel like it's that well thought out.
No, but I think they over time change what they want the prophets to be.
Exactly.
In the situation, exactly. And because, we've had this conversation about every franchise or every series on the franchise. You've got inconsistent Dr. Crusher. You've got inconsistent James T. Kirk. You've got, every character has, depending on who's writing them, will have some sort of inconsistency.
Yeah, it's just
so. And this is a race, and there's individual episodes, so it's like that's even more challenging.
Yeah, it's like you see Quark interacting with the prophets, and I just, to me, and he basically just pleads to. In the beginning, they say, he says the word de-evolve, which bothers me to no end, but I'm not going to get into that. He says you Troy Frog. He says you de-evolved Zach to be quote unquote less adversarial and less aggressive. Something they have already done. It's fine. I get the time thing is mixed up because they don't see time. But they had already agreed to do that. And then all it takes is Quark saying, no, don't do that thing. And they undo that thing and then not do it to him as well.
It was never done.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, fine. If they can see...
They shouldn't have done it into the first place.
Exactly. If they can see back to when... what they did to Zach when they were talking to Quark, then they should have been able to see when they were talking to Quark when they were back doing the thing to Zach. This is why
honestly, interacting with anything that's on our time frame doesn't make any sense.
Yes, of course.
I mean, it's like these Bajorans that were shepherding which we already know what's going to happen to them. So why are we doing this? Okay, bye. I mean, it's just like, it doesn't. I don't understand why they bother with any of us.
Yeah,
it's just in that sense.
And this in conjunction with the episode we just watched, it just leads me to think that if you have a race that can see through time, they're a pretty incompetent race because they never actually take advantage of the fact that they can see through time.
Well, that's true. We didn't say that they were intelligent prophets. They just have the ability to do this. I think there was something there, and just for me as a viewer of Deep Space Nine, it just never quite got all the way there. And then at the end, we kind of have like the evil prophets, basically, which felt a little bit like Quantum Leap when they had the evil leapers, which were like, basically, I think that was supposed to be, whoever was leaping Sam around in time was God, and then there was the bad guys, with actually played by a character who played Marista Yale in First Contact in Next Generation, and also a Romulan and something. And I think she was also on Deep Space Nine, but she played the evil leaper who had some sort of horrible name like Lutetia or something, evil sounding. But the point is that I think that the prophets, I don't know. They didn't, for me, it just didn't pan out as a great species. And, I like the idea that they take kind of an avatar of the people that you know. I think that's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a different experience for everybody. Like, the orb experience is literally different for everybody, yet the same, because everyone that we've seen is very, very similar. It's just, people kind of out of focus and telling you what not acting like themselves because they're just using that person's body. But kicking it back to the actual story with Quark and everything, I do think it's interesting that Quark and the people that he know all tend to be people that somehow are agents of change for Ferenginar in some way or another. It's like good or bad. You got his mother, who actually ends up marrying Zek, and spoiler. And then you have the way she changes people's perceptions of women in Ferengi culture. Right. It'd be interesting if Zek had been left this way, what would have happened to his character? Or if he'd been that way for a while and then switched back, and then it's like basically he could have shoveled himself into a hole that he couldn't got out of or something like that, and where then you could have had Quark's mom basically be the one to rescue him. But I think I might be out of time of how all these events happened. I would need the prophets to tell me what order I should put that in. But I don't know. It's like we're not here to do an episode rewrite, but
that'll be next year's project. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's not going to really happen. The other aspect of this episode that we should bring up is, which again is interesting in hindsight, is the Bashir storyline about him getting not winning the prestigious medical award that he so rightly deserved, which in the scheme of the episode works well, but when you have the foreknowledge of him being engineered and stuff, you kind of wonder. You look back on this episode and you say, you try to retcon it and you say, did he lose on purpose? What happened here?
Well, he wasn't, but he didn't sign up, or he wasn't. He didn't try to get this himself.
Right. But he still didn't win. So I mean, to me,
no, he didn't win. But he also was. He didn't do the submission. So maybe if he had, he would have, because he's just that good. I don't know.
Who knows?
But no, that's an interesting, just the whole idea of peaking too early, and just what happens when you're a wonder kid. Just like kind of, if you're talking about Wesley Crusher or, any of the characters where you have somebody who has done that thing in their career and then everything else is downhill after that. But if they do it so early, so I think for him, especially for his humility, it was probably good that he didn't win.
Yeah, for sure.
But like you said, it is interesting foreshadowing if they were actually thinking that far ahead.
Yeah. Well, we are actually done with our block now.
Yes.
But where can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about these episodes?
You can find me on Twitter. My username is GeekFilter. And you can find me on Saturday Morning Trek, our podcast about the animated series and all things Trek in the 1970s with my co-host Adam Drozen. And you can also find my artwork at our Trek FM store. I'm the network's art director. So if you want to wear a t-shirt around with a Lizard Babies logo on it or something. We actually have spring wine. The Prophet. So if you are Deep Space Nine moved, you can grab one of those shirts out of our Trek FM store.
And they can also find some of your best artwork yet, I have to say, the transparent Illumika shirt, which I absolutely love, on there as well. But they can find me here on the network, Honor Gray, with my co-hosts Darren and Philip, and they can find me personally on Twitter at @OneUpDan. That's the number one, not the word. Now, Aaron, tomorrow they can listen to the next episode with Eye of the Needle and Visionary. Do you have any idea who's going to be on those episodes?
Yes, actually, what I've done is I have used the Orb of Time, and I found out that it's actually me and Brandon Shea Matala.
All right, so listen to that tomorrow, and we'll catch you all later.
But I exist here.